Hello, and welcome to the Student Support Services Program's workshop series. The following is an educational recording produced by tutors from the Student Support Services Program at the City College of New York under the supervision of sound engineer, recording engineer, mixing engineer, mastering engineer, producer, arranger, composer, Linwood Fitts. This recording accompanies a PowerPoint presentation by the same name. Please do not post or share these files, which remain the intellectual property of the Student Support Services Program. To begin, open the PowerPoint presentation, and whenever you hear turn to the next slide. This presentation is Factoring Made Easy by Matthew Rosario. Also presenting is Nashra Nasad. This is for the spring 2017 semester, all rights reserved.
Hi, I'm Matthew Rosario, tutor at Student Support Service Program. This lesson is a step-by-step tutorial on how to factor quadratic equations. These skills are used in pre-calculus and higher level courses. Now we'll go over the 7 steps of factoring quadratic equations. Keep in mind, some steps might not be necessary depending on the problem. The first step is to arrange the trinomial in order of descending powers. If your problem is already in correct order, you can skip this step.
Hey, I have a question.
Yes?
What is a trinomial?
Good question. A trinomial is an equation with 3 terms. In this example, we have x plus 6, x squared minus 2. So we see the trinomial is not in the correct order. How will we rearrange this problem?
So let's see, we have x with the power of 1 and we have 6x squared with the power of 2. So since the highest power needs to be first, I believe the answer is going to be 6x squared plus x minus 2.
Great. As stated before, we can see the descending order of powers. Now let's move on to the next step. In step 2, we have to factor out the greatest common factor. Just like the previous step, this might not apply to all situations, so you may be able to skip this one.
Why do we have to factor out the greatest common factor?
We factor the GCF because it will help us simplify the equation with whole numbers. Basically, it will make the math easier to solve. In order to find the GCF, we have to find something in common between these 3 terms. What is common between these 3 terms?
So we have 12, 2, and negative 4. Since they all are multiples of 2 and are divisible by 2, I'm going to say the GCF is 2.
Correct. Now let's move on to step 3. For this step, we have to multiply the leading coefficient with the constant.
Why do we have to multiply the leading coefficient by the constant?
Good question. We multiply the leading coefficient with the constant because it will help us find the factors of this equation. This will lead us to the master product.
Oh, I see. And what is the master product?
The master product is the result of multiplying the leading coefficient and the constant. In this case, we see the leading coefficient is 6 and the constant is negative 2. So if we multiply them together, we get a master product of negative 12. So we're going to use this number in the next step.
I see.
So for the next step, we have to list all the factors of negative 12. So what are some factors of negative 12?
Let's see. There's negative 1, 12, or 1, negative 12. Negative 2, 6, or 2, negative 6. Negative 3, 4, or 3, negative 4.
Perfect. We're looking for factors that if we add up, they'll lead to the coefficient of x, which is 1. So when we add up these factors, only negative 3 and positive 4 equals 1. So this is the factor we choose. Next up, we have to apply the signs. As we see, steps 4 and 5 can be used interchangeably. We have to make sure that numbers we choose add up to the coefficient of x.
What is the purpose of the step?
Good question. The purpose of this step is because It is one of the most overlooked steps. You have to be sure to double check the sign of the factors, whether it's positive or negative. You can lose easy points if you forget the correct sign.
Oh.
So next, we rewrite the original problem. In order to factor by grouping, we need 4 terms. So we rewrite the equation using the factors from the previous step.
Is there another way to factor 6x plus 4 and x minus 3?
This is not the only way to factor. There's many ways to factor out this expression, but for the demonstration purposes, we're going to factor by grouping, as you will see in the last step, just to let you know there's no right or wrong way. So the last step is to factor by grouping. We do this by combining like terms.
So why do we have to rewrite the equation this way?
We rewrite the equation this way in order to combine like terms. It makes it easier to solve the problem. After we rewrite the expression, we then look for a GCF to help us simplify the problem. We can see that if we factor out 3x from the first parentheses and 2 from the second, we can group these expressions together and arrive at our final answer, which is 3x plus 2 times 2x minus 1. So now that you learned the step, let's try one on your own. This has been one way to factor. Hope this lesson helps you out.
This concludes the presentation. Thank you for listening, and we wish you all success in your studies.